Hello, everybody. Robert and Allen here for Legends of Nirvana, and we're here to review The Great Wall, which is an amazing looking game, as you'll soon find out when we review it. But before we start, please make sure you hit the notification bell and the like button just so that you'll be notified whenever we do release our reviews for up and coming board games and Kickstarter games, much like this one. So, ready to get started?
Let's go.
All right, let's do it. So Great Wall came out in 2021, but it did take a while for it to be released, but I think I got it late last year. Designed by an obligatory, apologies because I can't pronounce the names, but Camille Ciesla, Robert Plezowicz, and Lucas Wodarczyk. Art by Peter Gasick. Published by Awaken Realms. Great company. I'm a big fan. Overall rank is 1,052, rated at an 8.0. Now, the price is a little hard to kind of pin down because they just redid a second printing on Kickstarter. So that price, which is what Allen got into, is $359.22. I can't remember what I paid for. I know it was well over $200 because I got the all-in version like you did.
Right.
But you're getting more stuff than what I did because I didn't have the option for sleeves. I didn't get the art book. I know the art book was a little bit more. So, but you're getting sleeves. Did you get the book too?
It was an all-in price.
Okay,
everything
so you're probably
that they were offering is what I was
getting the art
getting.
book as well.
The basic game was, it wasn't.
Well, I did look on Geek Market while he's looking it up. So I looked on.
It was affordable, 110, 120.
So the base game on eBay found for $86. So that's not bad at all, and you get quite a bit of game for just that. Now on Geek Market, I saw someone selling the core with some of the expansions because there's several different ones that comes with the Kickstarter version for $200. It's a little pricier there, but like I said, I got the all-in. But what you're kind of seeing here is definitely the base game. These little towers are part of the Black Powder expansion, but we didn't use those. I just kind of, when I got mine, I kind of mixed stuff in, so I didn't remember by the time we got it played what belonged to the base game and what belonged to some of the expansions. So,
yeah, just looking on GameFound, which where it is right now,
yeah.
And I'm pretty. They've already. My charge was like last week, so it's very, very recent. The core box plus the stretch goals box is $126.
Okay,
so that's given the quality.
Yeah,
that's very affordable,
especially with what you get. But the stretch goals was one thing, but then there's also the upgrade for resource tokens. So I highly recommend that you find those if you can, because everything pretty much is cardboard before. And there's two versions of the game. You can get one with miniatures, and you get one with cardboard meeples. The miniatures are gorgeous, by the way, so I highly recommend that as well. So to go all in and get all the cool stuff, it's a hefty price tag, but I think it's well worth it, and I think you'll see from our review that we liked it quite a bit.
Yeah, we didn't play the expansions, but
right,
it adds a fifth player option, which, looking back at the game, I don't think we played 3 players. I don't think with 4 or 5 players it would have stretched the game time-wise that much longer. But the options and the way the game would have played,
it would have added a lot of depth.
Would have added a lot of depth.
Yeah.
Just have it so. It would recommend, maybe on the first, if you just play through to learn it, might be good with just 2 or 3 people. But really, I think to really explore this game to the fullest, you really need to go to that 5-player.
Because that 5-player would really minimize your options on where you can go, because you got limited spaces that we'll talk about. So I think that would really add a lot of tension to the game.
Agreed.
So, all right, so we'll start like usual. We'll start with our components first. So what did you think about the component quality? Now, granted, remember, this is the miniature version, upgraded resources, things like that.
Right. Well, just the miniatures. We'll start with those. To me, they're spectacular. I mean, I'm an engineer. And I've actually worked in manufacturing, but Robert works in manufacturing a lot. But it never ceases to amaze me the quality of what they can do with injection molding with these now. They're just, the detail on them is just fantastic. I mean, even you look at the eyes, and you can see mustaches. It's really fantastic.
And they're tiny.
They're tiny, but to what they've done, so they're easy to get a hold of. They're not so tiny that you could, that you're going to lose them. But it really adds so much to the fun factor of being able to play the game, to have these miniatures, and they're just, by the time you're doing it, they're all over the board, and it's very rich visually. The little pagodas that you see at the 3 levels. Apparently, that you can actually there's files you could get if you really want to go 3D print, so you could really go all out. But they just look really good. They add to the game. They're not that difficult to take apart and put together. So you've seen some games where you're just going to tear them up pretty quickly. I don't think these will do that. Their production values are a lot better. The cardboard's very strong core stuff. I think the quality of that production is just it's up there. This is high.
So I agree with the miniatures. They're just gorgeous. I mean, I think they're every bit as good as Games Workshop miniatures. I play 40K as well, and these you don't have to put together, which is a win-win. But as far as detail goes, they're every bit as good. So really good quality there. Cardboard, I'm a little bit middle of the ground. I think Alan's right. I think it'll take a little bit for it to start tearing up. I'm just afraid that if this comes to the table a lot, that they're not going to stand up to the test of time. But the card quality, though, I have to say is fantastic. Not really a linen finish, which is always a little bit of critique, but the thickness is fantastic. So I think these are going to stand up really well to time without necessarily being sleeved. But if you sleeve them, even better. So I think that's going to be really good. So I really like the card quality. The resource, again, these are upgraded, but the realistic token resources are really cool. So you got little rock tokens I'm trying to drop all over the floor. You got what they call chi tokens. You got wood, gold, and then wound tokens. And so I think those are fantastic. I don't remember what the cardboard one's version, because as soon as I got this in, I immediately switched out and said, why would I not use these? So, but so overall, I think I would give a component quality. I'm a 9. I think that if the cardboard aspect of it was a higher quality, it would be a 10 for sure. But everything else is just such a beautiful version of the game. I love it. It's a 9 hands down to me.
I tend to agree 9 for sure. I would hesitate to give it full mark. Total 10 just because of the cardboard as well. It's far better than what you're going to see.
I agree.
And from my mind, if you're looking at the base game and you're paying, just a little over $100 for all of that, you're getting your money's for what you paid for.
I completely agree with that. So let's do a theme. So theme, I think, is where the game really shines. It really feels like, just because of the look of the miniatures, the look of the cards, the look of the board, it feels like China and like what China would have been like back then. I really get that vibe from it. So I really can't give this anything less than a 10 on theme. Overall, it's just so good.
I agree. It's looking at the game, the milieu is around 80, 900, 1000, 1100, 1200, that era. The Song Dynasty and the Qin Dynasty and the Mongol hordes are invading, and they're building the Great Wall and all this. And there's upheaval within China, and then they've got the hordes attacking, and it's set in that era of history. So it's not like a game that's just completely out of somebody's brain. It actually takes a chunk of real history that you can go and look at, and they actually, a lot of the weaponry that's brought into it is from that era of history, and it just sucks you in, because with everything that's in there, it just is. You really get the thinking like that, and there's so much the strategy that goes with it. I could go on and on.
Oh yeah.
But the theme is great. It sucks you in. And to me, that's one of the marks of a game when it just draws you in, and it can. And admittedly, I'm an engineer, and single focus is an easy thing for us, but this one is like that. It'll have you just focusing on it, and you're thinking, what do I do next? What do I do with this one? How do you respond to the other players? You're gonna love it.
Yeah, I agree. And Caleb, he said the same thing. So, again, nothing specific that he called out on it, but he loved the theme, and he gave it a 10 as well. So, around the board there, we gave it straight 10s on that. Now, let's do Rulebook. And so, I'll start with Caleb's thoughts on on the Rulebook first. So, he's going to give it a 6. He wasn't real happy with some of the parts of the Rulebook as we were learning it from Alan teaching it. So, he felt that the iconography wasn't well explained, that it was very confusing in some regards, especially in regards to the rulebook. Not enough pictures in the rulebook to kind of be able to compare and be able to figure out what's going on. So that's why he gave it a 6.
Yeah, the rulebook, Now the rules themselves are well written. I've found a couple of grammar errors. Big deal. You know, of instead of or, just little things that don't matter in reality. They don't affect the way you actually look at it.
And it could have been a translation thing or something.
But the thing about it is after you got past about the first 2 or 3 pages of the rule book, and it's about 20, it went to full text. The back half of the rule book is nothing but text. There's no pictures, no icons, no symbology, no nothing. And as Caleb and I were discussing at times, that it's like, what does this mean? And trying to interpret some of the symbology that's on the cards. So I think there would be if I was going to do an addendum, that's the one I would want, is put something out there that says this is exactly what this symbology means, because we kind of deduced it, but I think somebody that wasn't really, that hadn't played a lot of games before would struggle. I think with trying to deduce what this means. What is this telling me to do? So I would encourage more on that, to really be more explicit with that explaining. I mean, I get it. It's not a simple game. It's complex. There's complexity to it. Although I will say, it's like any games. Once you get into it, it's like riding a bike. Once you get going, it starts to make sense. Although even this one, we had the rule book open the entire time, continually referring to it. So, but that's okay, because it was easy to find what we wanted. So I guess an addenda would be nice to explain the iconography. And then I think what would be good too, and I think they could do this with one sheet, is kind of an order of play. Yeah. That kind of, if you had something that explained all the icons, you could do an order of play with one page that was with the icons, that I think would help, and you wouldn't have to be referring to the rule book so much. Might help speed the game up.
And more than one for each player. So,
agreed.
But I agree with all that. What I really like to know is maybe we can come back and do another short update videos when you get your copy, see how much a difference, because a lot of times with reprints they'll update the rule book, and and they'll add errata that maybe they figured out that they needed to fix over time in play testing once it gets out to the market. So it'll be really interesting to see what kind of changes, especially to the rule book, that that they make, if any. So it'll be great to see that. But what kind of, you didn't really give it a score, so what did you score the rule book on?
For content layout, that's high. I'd give that an 8, 8.5. But just because of the missing iconography, and just because of the sometimes mystifying, that you're scratching your head trying to figure out what does this mean, I gotta give it an overall 6, 6.5 tops.
Okay. I didn't read it, so I was confused during some aspects of the game, but I wasn't really involved in the rulebook, so I don't think it'd be right for me to give an overall score to the rulebook. But I did find that it was confusing while learning the game, and the iconography was not the best. So, in my honest opinion. All right, so now let's talk about overall gameplay. So the game, as Alan mentioned, really isn't that hard to pick up. The complexity is how things relate to each other. And so really it's pretty much a worker placement game. And so you got different sections of your board. So you got a section down on the bottom that allows you to get resources. But the interesting part of that is that it always looks for multiple people to go on there, because otherwise you can get penalized. And so you have a limited number of spaces, and if those spaces don't get filled, then you don't get that option to even do it yet. But then once it gets filled out, then it activates. And then once it activates, then you get the number of resources equal to the number of clerks that you have on that spot. Now, if you're the only one there, then you get a shame token, which basically is like, oh, God forbid that you were the only one to get that, and shame on you. You get -5 points unless you get rid of it. And one way to get rid of it is during a specific phase of the season, of the year, you pay 2 chi tokens to get rid of it. Now, if there's multiple people on there, then you don't get that shame token, which is kind of an interesting part of the game. Is like, do I go there because I need the resources, but then not let Alan get a shame token? Or, do I let him, maybe get the shame token, but then he gets all these resources? So it's very much a risk versus reward type of situation. But there's different resources you get. So you can get wood, you can get stone, you can get chi, and you can get gold. And so they all have that same common limited number of spaces, depending on the number of people. That's how much resources you get. But an interesting part of the game is that you can also do it like an upgrade. And an upgrade is you pick which one of your soldiers can go down there, and then that's going to be income that you get at the end of the year that can help supplement what you would normally get by going there with your clerks. So I thought that was a really interesting part of the game.
Right.
And then how you can actually upgrade those spaces to get more throughout. Because those resources are extremely important to all the other stuff. And so you got that. You got the ability to get these tactic cards. Tactic cards will look at whatever the situation is going on. And if you meet the requirements, then you get to do some cool stuff. And most of them will even have a boost action. So then you can make it even more powerful. But that's one of the interesting things that I thought that Kayla brought up as far as the those tactics cards is a lot of them are really good, but some of them, they don't really have a negative side effect, but they have a positive side effect for your opponents, which is really an interesting twist on this type of game, because it's very much a battle game. You're trying to defeat these hordes that are attacking China. So it's like, if I do this card, yeah, I might get something good. They'll get something good too. And is it really worth it? Some cases, yeah. Some cases, you really have to weigh that decision. And like one thing, Caleb played a card that really helped us get rid of all of our shame tokens, or helped us get some soldiers back. And and it makes you wonder, if he would have done that, did it really help him or did it hurt him? I don't know. But that's the most attack games, you attack the other people. That's not the case here. It's just helping each other out, and you have to decide whether it's worth it or not. So then you've got the ability to make more soldiers, and then those soldiers are based off of what type of resource you use. And then different soldiers units you got your clerks. You generally start with 5 clerks, but there's 3 more that you can get eventually. Then you got spearmen, then you've got archers, and then you got basically like knights. I don't think they're called knights, are they?
I don't know what they're
called. I forget what they're called, but they're basically cavalry.
Horsemen.
Yeah, so you have those, and so you build those with the goal being you take those units and then you're trying to defeat these hordes that come in. And so based off of what part of the game you're in will dictate how many of these horde cards come out. And these horde cards basically have all these different spots. And so you have to fill those in. And whoever has majority of those and then they all get completed will get this card, and it's worth victory points. And so, but not only do you have to try and attack them, but they attack you too. And so they have this value down here in the lower right-hand corner. And so what happens is and you can get multiple cards, but if you don't have enough defense, then they breach through. And if they breach through, they'll kill your units. You'll get shame tokens. All kinds of bad stuff can happen. And so the way you defend yourself is you can build the wall. And so you're literally building the Great Wall of China. And there's 3 levels. Each level progressively gives you more defense, as well as you can build fortifications, which they're all worth 2. But the goal being that you're trying to kill enough the cards off, as well as defend yourself well enough to where the breach attack value is less than what your wall or your defense value is.
The other thing I just want to add in, and this is something Caleb did, and it was fascinating to see how he worked it out. The stackability of the various things he was able to put together, during one of his areas on the round. He made like 35 points. I mean,
out of like
1/5
3 cards, and being able to attack
points for the entire game. He pulled out in about a 3-minute period.
Yeah, 1 turn.
And it was awesome to see the thought that you have to go into, okay, I've got all these cards. How do I stack them? What order do I play them in? And so it gives you a lot of thinking, a lot of force strategy to be thinking as you get these cards, how can I make them work together? It's just really good there. The complexity was
it blew our mind when he did
the ability to do that. It was just like, it was great. I mean, he went from like 20 points to well over 50.
Yeah.
It was just really, really fun to watch that. It just makes it fun to watch that.
And it's all based on those tactic cards.
Exactly.
So, I mean, the tactic cards are really cool in that way, but it's kind of weird that it could give benefits to your opponents too. Well, so that was his negative, but it was also his favorite part of the game.
Yeah, right. Very good point. One of my favorite race car drivers coined the term co-opetition. You have to. You're all going to get your butts kicked if you don't cooperate. You have to do some cooperating. Table talk is okay. There's going to be some table talk and some strategies. What can we do? Because you've got to defeat these cards. If you don't, you're just going to get buried.
Right.
That you have to do that. So you've got to work together to do that. But there's another layer of strategy that's going on that I was able to exploit as we played the game with these cards and these values that you get in your in-game scoring. but the order in which things get played on them and how they get played on them,
Right.
I was able to exploit that, and it's really what pushed me way over the top. But so there's a lot of the overall strategy of the game is we all have to work together to defeat the hordes, but then we're all kind of, it's very much kind of the politics of and I'm a 21-year Air Force veteran. It's the politics of a way a military works. There's always competition between the services. There's competition between elements of the services. So you kind of see. I could see that in there, and to me, that was fun seeing that being brought into the reality of a game.
And I think politics is a good way of putting it, because the worker placement part of it is, I'd say, maybe 2/3 of the game, because the other third is card selection. And so everyone has the same deck of cards, and so at the beginning of the season of the year, you choose which card you want to play, and so then whoever's first player gets those cards, and they decide what order they're going to be enacted, and how they go off. And so that could be a huge part of, all right, well, I'm playing this card, which allows me to move these clerks to do all those action selection that I want to do. But maybe I don't want to do it yet. Maybe I want Alan to go first because I want to see where he goes. And then maybe that will then help me determine that I'm going to go there as well because I need those resources. Or I see he needs that. I'm not going to go there, so that way he gets a shame token. But the deck is really interesting in the fact that we all have the same cards. Yep. And then they play off each other. So I think that's why the politics is a good way to compare kind of compare that to, because one card will look at other cards. Mm-hmm. And if it looks at other cards that are there, it's going to be better. And so I think politics is a really good way to describe that and kind of compare it to. And so these decks are really interesting as well. So I think that hit about all of it, don't you think? So, I mean, there's some more nuanced rules to it where you get additional victory points based off of what units are, where they're located, when the attack happens. But that's really getting into the nit and gritty of the game. So I think that's overall, the best way we can describe how to play the game.
Yeah, I guess if I would recommend, if anything, to play the game, get everything out.
Yeah.
Get the rule book out. Go through the setup very deliberately. Just work your way through it so you understand that. Because just going through and getting it set up right, understanding where things are, what it's called, what its purpose is. I mean, at first, it's almost gonna jumble. But I think
there's a lot.
Once you do that, and then keep the rule book close at hand, and keep working through those first couple of turns, then it'll start to make sense. Okay, now I understand. This is what that does. And you get to start to see how everything works together. But I will encourage you this. Keep that rule book close. You're going to refer to it through the entire, effectively 5.5 years of the way the game is played. It's basically a year, an overall turn, I guess you would call it a year. It's split up into 4 seasons. Imagine that. And each season has different things that you do. So, but keep the rule book close. It will make a difference. I don't foresee, I guess if I played this game 20 times, maybe I could finally get it implanted in my brain and not need the rule book. But even then, there's too much complexity to do that. I mean, they even have like an index at the end to where it'll tell you on what page or pages something is done. So they recognize the complexity of it.
So overall, Caleb gave the game a 7. Again, his positive was that he likes the big combos via the tactic cards, but his negative is also related to the tactic cards on how they can help your opponent. So overall, what score would you give this game?
Oh, I'm much higher than 7. I'm thinking 8.5, 9 almost. I've played some games that I like better, that I'm more excited about, but this game, the replayability the factor is going to be just off the hook. You over and over and over again, and it's going to be different because you have a character that you play. You have to choose a general, and they're all different. They all have different abilities. They're going to work with the tactics cards different. Their ability they have is going to kind of help dictate to you what your strategy is. And given that they're all different, the replayability is just very, very high.
That and the fact that we didn't even mention, you also have advisors.
Yeah.
So the advisors, you have they have active advisors, and then you have support. And so the active advisors give you an upfront ability, much like your general. But then the support advisors, they give you bonuses for usually your other support. Your active advisors or your general will be able to say, all right, you get to do more stuff because you have more support. So again, that's another layer of that complexity that it's not too terribly complex, but it adds some depth to it.
It's not so much that you can't, going through this one game, I feel like I've got it. I understand this game. I can jump into it again, and the replay would go faster because I understand more. But at the same time, just the complexity is going to change.
And there's a ton of variety.
And it will change with a different number of players.
Yeah.
There's an automa version, and you can play them with 2 to 5 players. And from having now played it with 3, it's going to be different. Mm-hmm. Every number of players is going to be different the way the game unfolds. So
overall, you were 9.
I think 9. Yeah.
I think I'm the same way. So overall, I think I'd score the game a 9. So, again, just I wish the cardboard was a little bit. I wish we figured out a different way with the cardboard with the Great Wall, because I'm just afraid that if I play this a lot, it's going to kind of tear up after a while. And so I might look at getting maybe some 3D printed wall portions to be able to prolong the life of the game. But I mean, overall, had a good time. Had a good time playing with Alan and Caleb. Thought I was doing really well, and it turned out I wasn't doing really well. And so, which always kind of bites you, but it felt good, though. It still was a fun game. And I think that one thing I'd like to think of this is that it's not as brutal a version as Nemesis. Nemesis is a great game. It's got that cooperative aspect to it, but it definitely crosses that line where it becomes stab you in the back. And whereas this one is cooperative up front, it's got a very subtle little, not really stab you in the back, but again, those tactic cards where it just helps the other guy. So I think this is a nicer version. I mean, completely different way of playing the game. But if I were to compare the two, I think Nemesis is more brutal than this. And so approach it that way. But again, this is another game. Awaken Realms is just knocked out of the park.
Yeah, this game was, the in-game scoring was probably 40 to 50% of the total points were in-game scoring. There were some, they called them artifacts that you play, and maybe I kind of gave me an advantage because they were right in front of me during that game, and I was able to read them and study them and kind of understand.
And they were completely the other side of the board for me, so I didn't see them at all. And I completely forgot them.
It really played to my advantage. So as you do that, one thing to make sure to make that even, make sure everybody gets a look at them and kind of understands them and what they are. Like in this case, there's 5 of them, and you randomly choose 3.
Right.
So they're going to be different each game, but I think you have to understand that, because even with the general you're playing, it's going to impact into how you can maximize it in the game scoring. And in my case, I was able to do that.
And there were some big points there.
Yeah, agreed. There were some big points there. And I think even with the way we played it, we left a lot of those points on the table.
I think so too.
Just because of the way we did this. I mean, the game, it comes with, it's got a counter up to 100, and then they give you, there's got a little triangle that you flip it over to get to an additional 200. Although I think in a 5-player game, I could see the possibility of somebody pushing over 200. But you would really have had to maximize every point that you could possibly get along the way. So. But just overall, fun game, great replayability. Looking forward.
And he's
to
glad that he
got
it. So
looking forward to playing it with the expansions.
Yeah.
The Black Powder expansion, the Beasts.
Yeah, the Beasts
piece that comes in, that rolls in. Just going to be a lot of fun.
The stretch goal is just another caller player, so you can get it up to 5, as Alan mentioned.
Yeah, I guess the one thing to me that I would really, I think that would make, in terms of quality and the playability, is with the board. If you do like they've done with Scythe and Legendary with some others, to have it on like a roll up.
They have that available.
The mat, okay.
They have a player mat available.
Player mat will be available.
Yep, they have
and then I think maybe going to a more foam core instead of the cardboard with the pagodas and some of the punch outs, but I realize I'm adding a lot of cost.
Yeah.
And at this point in time, probably 3D printing is going to be a better solution to go with those, to get something that's going to be more durable. I mean, if this is a game that people really get into, and if you leave it set up, you're going to want to do that.
So I think that's an interesting idea, Awaken Realms. If you're watching this, make the STL files yourself and include them in the game. And so then if someone wants to print them, then you're not having to worry about someone else designing them and then potentially selling them. Make it yourself.
Tend to agree.
So that'd be great. Any other thoughts?
Great game, highly recommended. You're going to love it.
Yep. It's definitely got 2 thumbs up for me. So Awaken Realms, awesome job. The Great Wall. Get it if you can find it. So other than that, thank you for spending your time with us and looking at the Great Wall. Have a great night. Bye.